Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into a question that's been on a lot of minds lately. Is the Netflix series Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story really full of lies? It's been over 3 decades since Eric and Lyle Menendez shocked the world by murdering their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion. But the story hasn't faded into the background, not even close. In fact, it's back in the spotlight thanks to Netflix's retelling of the case. The show has people buzzing, and not just because of the crime itself. It's got viewers wondering how much of this series is actually based on the truth. For those unfamiliar, Netflix recently dropped Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, a dramatized retelling of the brothers' infamous case, released on September 19th. And just a few weeks later, on October 7th, they also put out a documentary called The Menendez Brothers, giving a more fact-based dive into the events. So, we've got two shows, both of which play up the drama of a true crime incident. But here's where things get complicated. Where do we draw the line between fact and fiction? Let's rewind for a second. In the 1990s, the Menendez brothers' trials were broadcast live on court TV, captivating millions. It was a media circus like no other. But what really shook the nation was when the brothers claimed they were victims of years of abuse at the hands of their parents. This shocking defense created a whirlwind of questions. Were Eric and Lyle victims trying to survive, or were they just cold-blooded killers? Fast forward to today, when the case has been closed for years and both brothers have been incarcerated for their doings, Netflix has brought the case back into our living rooms. But with that, we're left wondering, how much of what we see on screen actually happened? Hollywood has a tendency to blur the lines when it comes to true crime. And while the Menendez case is full of undeniable facts, there are details that can't be easily verified, especially since their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, aren't here to defend themselves or provide their side of the story. And that's where the Netflix series might be playing with fire. There are scenes in Monsters that are intense, emotional, and dramatic. But how much is creative liberty? In this video, we're going to break down what's real, what's exaggerated, and what's left in the gray area. Does Netflix's Monsters honor the facts, or does it take too many creative liberties? Stick around, because this story is far from simple, and we're just getting started. On the night of August 20th, 1989, the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric, made a decision that would forever alter their lives. Armed with shotguns, they entered the den of their family's Beverly Hills mansion, where their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, were sitting, watching television. Without warning, gunfire erupted. Jose was shot first, 6 times in total. Kitty, startled and terrified, tried to flee but was gunned down as well, shot 10 times as she crawled on the floor, begging for her life. The last shot left her unrecognizable. The brothers had planned their crime meticulously. After the murders, they calmly cleaned themselves up, disposed of the bloody clothes, and hid the shotguns somewhere along Mulholland Drive. As if in a calculated act to cover their tracks, they drove to a movie theater, pretending to buy tickets to the movie Batman, but ultimately ditched that plan, knowing the timestamps on the tickets would blow their cover. Instead, they attended a festival before returning home. At 9/11's receiving end, Lyle's frantic voice claimed he had just discovered his parents murdered. His younger brother, Eric, could be heard sobbing hysterically in the background, painting a perfect picture of shock and despair. When the police arrived, they found the brothers running toward them, crying and pleading for help. The crime scene inside was devastating. Blood spattered everywhere, brain matter on the walls, and the remains of Jose barely recognizable. Retired police detective Dan Stewart, shaken by what he witnessed, said, "I've seen a lot of homicides, but nothing quite that brutal. Blood, flesh, skulls. It would be hard to describe, especially Jose, as resembling a human that you would recognize. That's how bad it was." But despite the overwhelming brutality of the murders, the officers did not question the brothers' involvement, nor did they run a gunshot residue test on them. In the weeks that followed, Lyle and Eric began spending lavishly: cars, expensive watches, overseas trips, fine dining. It was as though the murders hadn't happened. Their sudden lifestyle change raised eyebrows, but it wasn't until Eric, burdened by guilt, confessed to a friend that the case began to take a turn. The police learned of this confession, as well as Eric's sessions with a psychologist, Jerome Oziel. Eric had revealed the truth to Oziel, unaware that the tapes of their sessions would later become crucial evidence. It was Oziel's mistress who eventually tipped off the authorities, leading to the brothers' arrest. Once in court, the Menendez brothers didn't deny the killings. Instead, they claimed they had acted out of fear. For years, they said, they had been subjected to horrific abuse at the hands of their father, sexual, emotional, and physical. And their mother had turned a blind eye, sometimes even encouraging their father's cruelty. Lyle and Eric's cousin, Diane Vander Molen, testified that during a stay with the family in the mid-1970s, Lyle confided in her about the sexual abuse he was suffering at the hands of their father. Vander Molen claimed she approached Lyle's mother, Kitty, to inform her of the situation. However, Kitty dismissed Lyle's accusations, siding with her husband and accusing Lyle of lying. Following this confrontation, Vander Molen recalled that Kitty sent Lyle upstairs, and the issue seemingly vanished from the discussion. Another cousin, Andy Kano, alleged that Eric had confided in him about the abuse during their childhood. According to the brothers, the abuse had reached a boiling point in the weeks leading up to the murders, and they believed their parents were planning to kill them to keep the family's dark secrets hidden. The first trial ended in a mistrial, as the jury couldn't agree on a verdict. But in the retrial, the defense's emotional plea did not save them. Prosecutors painted the brothers as cold, calculating killers who murdered their parents for greed, not survival. The jury convicted Lyle and Eric of first-degree murder. Both were sentenced in 1996 to life in prison without the possibility of parole. How much of the original story made it to the Netflix series? Revisiting notorious crimes in docuseries often stirs controversy among the public, victims' families, and even the individuals involved. Many viewers express frustration over the lack of sensitivity toward the emotional trauma experienced by victims and the tendency to glamorize the criminals themselves. When telling stories as sensitive as those of Jeffrey Dahmer or the Menendez brothers, a thoughtful script and strong performances are essential to authentically represent the complexities of trauma. Unfortunately, Ryan Murphy's second season of Monsters, which focuses on the Menendez brothers, misses the mark and fails to resonate. Dialogue surrounding their abuse and the murders feel shockingly blunt and devoid of the internal struggle that such decisions would entail. For instance, when their therapist questions them about their mother's death, their responses come across as disturbingly cold, painting them as ruthless killers and ignoring the emotional battles that led to such tragic actions. Similarly, many such key details were either missed out entirely or given a different color, digressing the story from how it actually occurred. The series portrays a scene where Jose and Kitty Menendez confront their sons just before the murders, suggesting a level of awareness that likely didn't exist. Reports indicate that Jose was shot from behind while watching TV, meaning he was likely unaware of his attackers. Kitty's tragic fate, shot multiple times, adds to the grim reality of that night, starkly contrasting the series' dramatized interpretation. In the show, therapist Dr. Jerome Oziel confides in his mistress during a session with the brothers. The accuracy of this portrayal is disputed. Oziel claimed she wasn't present during the confession, while she contended otherwise. This discrepancy illustrates how the series takes creative liberties with sensitive moments. The TV show, Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, tells the story of two brothers who killed their parents. In one episode, the father, Jose Menendez, claims that his own mother sexually abused him, but there is no real evidence to support this claim. The show uses this claim to suggest that Jose Menendez might have abused his own son, Eric, in a similar way. While the series makes this connection, there's little evidence to back it up. This narrative choice raises questions about the writer's approach to the family's history. It's important to note that the show is based on a true story, but it is still a dramatization. This means that some details may have been changed or exaggerated for dramatic effect. So, while the show suggests that Jose Menendez was abused by his mother, it is important to remember that there is no proof that this actually happened. Monsters hints at an incestuous relationship between Lyle and Eric, featuring a shower scene that raises eyebrows. No credible evidence supports this claim, and it's a significant departure from the known facts, leading to harsh criticism from the family and the public alike. Even Eric Menendez himself expressed his utter disgust at this made-up part of the story. The series implies Eric's sexual identity through dramatic storytelling, suggesting he had relationships influenced by trauma. However, Eric has publicly stated he is not gay, and the series' portrayal conflicts with his narrative, focusing instead on sensationalism. The Menendez brothers faced a convoluted legal battle, with two initial trials ending in hung juries before they were tried together. The show captures this dynamic, but simplifies the complexities surrounding juror demographics and the exclusion of crucial testimony regarding abuse. Critics have openly shared their disappointment with the Netflix series Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story. Many have pointed out that the show lacks depth and direction. For example, Jesse Hassinger from The Guardian described it as exhausting and repetitive, while Variety noted that, despite some strong performances, especially in the fifth episode, the series loses its way as it unfolds. The narrative has been criticized as futile and bizarre, as it struggles to balance the horror of the brothers' abuse with the violence they later inflicted. The dissatisfaction doesn't stop with critics. It extends to the Menendez brothers themselves. Eric Menendez recently shared strong criticisms through a statement posted by his wife, Tammy Menendez. He described the series as misleading and accused co-creator Ryan Murphy of intentionally distorting the facts of their crime. Eric claimed the show is filled with blatant lies, which create a harmful narrative about their lives and experiences. His frustration was evident as he emphasized how Murphy shapes the story through vile and appalling character portrayals of both him and Lyle, viewing this as a form of disheartening slander. Reflecting on the painful truths of their past, Eric argued that Netflix's portrayal of their tragic circumstances takes the world several steps backward. He believes it brings us back to a time when society often dismissed the reality of male sexual abuse, reinforcing the idea that men experience trauma differently than women. For over 20 years, Lyle and Eric Menendez were imprisoned in separate facilities. Lyle was held at Mule Creek State Prison in Ione, California, while Eric was located about 500 miles away at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego County. This physical separation meant that the brothers could not talk to each other for many years. Instead, they communicated through letters, sharing their thoughts and feelings while trying to support each other from a distance. They even played chess through the mail, which provided a way to connect and maintain their bond despite being apart. In February 2018, Lyle was moved to a different housing unit within Richard J. Donovan, and in April of the same year, Eric was transferred to the same unit. This change allowed them to reunite after years of separation. When they saw each other again, they expressed their surprise at finally being together in the same facility. This reunion marked a significant moment in their lives after decades of communication only through letters. In 2018, another significant development revived the case. A letter from Eric to his cousin, written back in 1988, almost 7 months before the murder, revealing his fears about his father, stating, "It's still happening." In 2023, Lyle and Eric Menendez's lawyers took a significant step by filing a petition to vacate the brothers' convictions based on new evidence. This evidence included the letter from Eric, as well as claims made by Roy Rosselló, who alleged that he was drugged and raped by Jose Menendez in the 1980s. These developments could potentially reshape the narrative surrounding the case and prompt a re-evaluation of the circumstances that led to the brothers' drastic actions. And that wraps up our look at Netflix's Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story. As we've discussed, the series leaves us with more questions than answers, mixing dramatization with real events. While it tries to explore the brothers' complex lives and their tragic backgrounds, it often veers into misleading territory, drawing criticism from both the Menendez brothers and viewers. So, what are your thoughts? Does the Netflix series do justice to the Menendez story, or does it miss the mark? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more discussions on true crime and the stories that shape our understanding of justice. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.